So I'm going to kind of cover what's going on when we do things like git add, git commit, git reset in terms of these trees that GitHub has a concept of. So I share my screen here. Let's hit it from the curriculum. So if we go down to, I believe, in the 3 objects, 3 trees exercise, and start at the bottom. So literally all the way down. Nope, not that. This one. So 3 objects, 3 trees, all the way to the bottom. So what we've been working with are these trees. Trees is a very overloaded term. So in this context, what I mean by trees are basically a logical tree of Git objects. Okay, so, and we'll talk about objects in the afternoon after lunch. But so head is, as you see in your whatever graph you might be looking at, is pointing to some commit. So we see head up here, for source tree, for instance. That's actually not right. That's head. That's head over there. That's origin head. Our head for source tree represents it as this dot with a a circle around it, and that's head. If you do the same thing for if you run an ADOG, then you see this something like this. So head in this case is pointing to the branch main, and we'll cover more about that later. But basically, there's a place that is pointing to a commit somewhere in your repo, and that is the commit tree. So that's this. And then if you're local, and this is all, by the way, this is all local. This has nothing to do actually with remote per se. This is just how things work in your local repo. So you've got head pointing to a commit. That's one tree. Kind of in the middle, you've got something called the index or the staging area, and that's another tree, but it's not committed yet. So when you do a git add, for instance, things go into the staging area, and then the third tree is actually your workspace on your hard drive, right? That is maybe the changes you have. It's things you can CD around into, and look at and edit. That's your workspace tree. So, for instance, when you do a git add, things come from your workspace and get copied into the index, but not to the head yet. Then when you do a git commit, things go from your index into a new commit, basically, that sits on top of where head used to point, and then head gets moved up to it. What else happens? So if you do a reset, then you can kind of go backwards if you want. So let's see what that looks like. And this is the summary of all these things I'm going to discuss in the next 5 minutes. So you can just skip down to the bottom for reference here. But let's say I have, let's go to my Romeo. So you've got your repo. You can do this in your repo as well. And I'm going to clear the screen here for clutter purposes. And I look at what I've got going on. I don't have much going on yet, right? But I do have one commit. So you should all have at least one commit and more now that you've done some project work, right? What if I, let's see, let's quickly make something. I don't have an about page. Let's make an about page just to get myself a local commit. Okay, that Control D. I'm going to git add it. Okay, so first, before I do that, what workspace or which tree have I changed at this point?
The workspace?
Just the workspace. So when I do a get status, so status is telling me about my trees. All right, that's one way to think about get status. It says, okay, that my head is pointing to branch, or my head is pointing to the main branch. Telling me more about local remote kind of stuff here. But then it starts telling me about my trees here. So the file that I've changed is not tracked, so it's not really even in a tree yet. It's just, I mean, it's in my workspace tree. So I need to add it. Okay, now let's do another get status, see what happens. So now, now about.html is in green in the my color scheme. It used to be red, which that had to do with the workspace tree. Now it's in green. Now it's in this index. And so it's moved, or not moved, but it's copied. So now the index reflects what my workspace tree is, but I still haven't got to head yet. So I have to commit in order for that to happen. Oops. All right, and now get status. So now get status says you're all clean. They're all in sync, basically. There are no out trades between head, index, or your workspace. So all is good. You can move wherever you want. So let's see what that looks like in the context of actually no, let's just stick with this for right now. So now I've got a third commit here, right? And this commit is ahead of the origin. So I can kind of move it around as long as I don't move it somewhere back here and then try to push it, because then I start messing with the remote's concept of where it is. I'll get into that later. That's a slightly different topic. But what I can do now is start to move this change back. So for instance, suppose I had committed about.html and I was too quick. I'm like, I need to change some more stuff. How do I revert that? Well, I can move it back move it back to the index, for instance. So that's where get reset comes in handy. And basically the reset works based on soft, mixed, or hard. So if it's soft option, it will only kind of yank head back and leave the other two trees alone. If it's mixed, it will yank both head and the index back and leave the workspace alone. If it's hard, it will yank all three trees back and force everything to be whatever I'm resetting to. So in this case, sorry, I just want to go back one commit. So there's several ways I can reference that. I can copy paste that commit. That will work. Or I could use anything that is also on there. I could say origin main, because that will resolve to the same commit. Probably wouldn't normally care to do that, but it accomplishes the same objective. You can also use relative references, and Git lets you do things like this. So this syntax says move me one back before head. That's what that caret sign represents. So go to the commit before head. So if I do that, let's look at what the graph says. So now I am back one before hit. So now I'm back here. So this commit isn't referenced anymore. However, if I do a get status, remember mix sets back head and it sets back the index, but it leaves the workspace alone. So now my status tells me, oh, you're back, you're kind of where you were before. Remember when I very first created that about.html? So reset mix did not change my workspace, but it pulled everything, kind of pulled the index and the head out from under it in a sense, but it left the workspace alone. So now status is reporting on, well, here's what it looks like is the state of things. So, I can go to, sorry, I'm going to use VI for a minute. Right, I can make some other changes. And then I can just, proceed again as if I had, never committed it before. So that's the get mix, the reset mix, sorry, get reset mixed. What if I have several files and I just want to change, like add another file? Maybe I've committed about, I like it, but what I forgot to do was to, some other page was in here, and I do a get status, and oh shoot, I forgot to commit page.html along with about. Those should have gone together, right? So I can use get reset to pull about.html back out, and only this time I don't need to change both trees. I just need to pull back head, and then about.html is still sitting there in the index. So if we look at our graph, if I only want to change head, then I can use -- soft. So first I need to see, no, actually I don't need to see, because I can do relative references. So I know I want to go back one before head, so that's all I have to say. And then if I look at my graph now and look at my status. So now about is sitting there in the index because I've only pulled back head. Now I can add page along with about. So I can do a get add page. Get status. So now they're both there in the index. Just that's how I wanted it to be, right? Because now I've used get add to copy page into the index alongside of about. Now I can commit them both. So I'm going to go over this again. Don't worry if this went too fast, because I know it did. But the idea is this quick intro is to see that you can move changes back and forth, not just forward in your tree, but backwards in these three trees. If for certain reasons that have to do with basically communicating your code effectively to your team, because you don't want like lots of little typo changes and things that they're going to be just clutter up what your changes are all about. You want to present it in a nicely packaged format, and yet real life is such that doesn't happen in first draft mode. So this lets you kind of before you push everything up, you can do lots of kind of cleanup and arranging using these trees and get it like you want it, and then push it up to share with your team. So let's see. Let me leave you with lunch and a lab. Actually, first, any questions at this point of what I've shown so far?
What would be the difference between, let's say you do, the add, you did the about, you committed it, but you didn't push. Then you went and then added the page, also committed the page, and then you pushed. Would that be the same result?
To the team, the content of your, like when they did get cloned, the content would be the same, but the tree would look different. So for instance, right now, let's see, I haven't committed it yet. So let's go ahead and commit it. So if I did, so I added a couple of pages. Oh, no, -m. So if you did it in the way you're describing, there would be 2 commits to represent that change or that set of changes. And so you would get the same code ultimately, out into your workspace. That's true. But if somebody was trying to figure out what change went together, suppose there were, not 2 files, but 100 files, and you forgot one, right? And somebody wanted to work with that change and say, okay, I'm going to, take this change and put it on another branch. Well, if there's one file missing, then that change won't get everything it needs to get. So they would have preferred that you package all the changes in that commit, and then they could just work with that commit, as a complete set rather than a set missing something. So there'll be times when you want to, there's an operation called cherry pick, which you can use to take a commit and just that commit and put it on your branch for whatever reason you might want to. Maybe it's a bug fix or some feature that you just need that. You don't need the rest of the branch. So your commits are change sets. And so this gives you tools to package your commit the way that you want to in order to communicate with your team about those changes. Now, one final point I'll make, and then I'm sorry, go ahead, Alicia, you had a question?
Yeah, first, I'm still not understanding what is the origin/main and why is it before the head main?
Okay, good question. So each repo has its own notion of a given branch. All right, so origin is just the name of some remote somewhere. And in this case, it happens to be GitHub, but it's just, it's a remote. It's something that's not on it's a connected repo that's not local to you. And so this just says, well, for reference, that other repo thinks main is down here. That remote called origin thinks that its main is here.
But you pushed, didn't you?
Say again?
But you pushed, didn't you?
Nope.
Oh, you didn't?
I did. I've only done git adds, commits, and resets.
Oh, okay. I saw the commits and I just always push after a commit. So I was like, wait a minute. Okay. And then the second part of my question that is, Adam's been teaching us to basically push and push often, which has been very helpful. But it kind of sounds like you're saying you don't want a bunch of small pushes. You just want to have one big one. So it sounds like maybe that would be a lot of manipulating your trees to try and grab them all and put them back in index and then push them all at once.
Well, yes, so in principle, I agree. You don't want to keep stuff sitting around locally that isn't, for one thing, it's not going to be backed up. If anything happens to your repo, then it's nowhere else except your repo. And for another, if you keep stuff sitting around and the world is changing, over there where everybody else is living, then you're going to get behind, and it's going to be harder to keep your changes in sync with, a large set of changes than a small set. So not only should you get pushed often, you should get pull often, which is, part of the deal. So that you are, keeping integrated, right? And then when you're pushing, then everybody else is also keeping integrated with what you're doing. Now, with that said, what you want to put up there is you want something that makes sense. And so this is kind of a tool that you can have to make your change make sense before you share it with someone. Right. So kind of a language analogy would be to, speak in complete sentences rather than disjointed phrases. And so this helps you kind of make a sentence, make a complete sentence out of your change that you're sharing. Because this is, this is fundamentally what you're doing is collaborating changes with each other, with each other on changes that get made. So like I may make a bunch of changes locally just because I'm testing something. I want a place to roll back to if I screw it up, and then I can make changes with confidence, and if I screw it up I can get back to a known good point, and then try again from there. So I want to use Git locally for my own sanity, but then when I've got these changes that I've gotten, I'll show you another one called Rebase, but you can basically not only back up, but you can squash a bunch of changes down into one or a few, and and make the comments more descriptive, and kind of be less in a hurry about what you say about this thing, and think, okay, what do I want people to know about this change, and then do a push of all that up there. So I'll make sure I touch on that this afternoon as well. But the idea right now, I just want you to kind of get familiar with this notion of trees, and that that's how Git lets you work with your changes locally, and how it thinks about your changes. So if you have time during lunch, like I said, I went to the bottom of this, but maybe skim this objects and trees page. I'll talk more about objects as well. I found that it's not as useful to focus on objects, even though I thought it was cool to understand what was going on under the hood. But the trees are, the trees are on the hood, so we do need to know about those to work effectively with Git. Caleb, you had a question.
Yeah, and you could tell me if this is a bit outside the scope, but the other day when we were talking about Git, we're talking about how oftentimes they'll pull pieces and work on, a development branch instead of the master, et cetera. When they work on the development branch, when they go to merge, do all of the commits that happen on the development branch show up as one commit to the merge branch, or do they show individually there as well?
So you'll see a merge commit. Definitely, but you'll also see where that came from. So for instance, if I were to look at, the sample project repo, so this is a merge commit, and by definition a merge commit has multiple parents. So it has this parent and it has this parent, and so one fundamental attribute of a merge of a commit is like where it came from, its parent, or multiple in this case. And so as long as you've got this tree, you can see what commits went into that tree. So so it's depending on how you do the merge and what changes you make when you fold it in, it may or may not look like its ancestor commits, but you can at least see where it came from, what commits were trying to be merged in there.
Okay, so even if you're working on another branch, it's still, I would say, best practice to try to package your pushes to GitHub for even the other branches into something that's easily identifiable, like you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I mean, when you're sharing it with people, like they want to see what you've done, right? And so if you've got like 10 commits that say typo, oh, another typo, oh, yet another typo, like that doesn't really help anybody. It doesn't even help you if you look at it again. And so you can squish all those, like if you've got a bunch of typo commits, you can squish them down into one and say these are changes that just one commit is enough. Like I forgot how to type. Okay, now we can move on.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right, catching up on some chat here. So committing without pushing it, yes. Committing without pushing it backs it up. So one thing I'll say is if you do have so when you do a recommit, it changes the commit SHA. Like that will never be the same commit SHA. This number here that represents the commit. And so if you were to back up before where the remote thinks you are, for instance, like, let me go here and try and look at that. So if I were to back up to here, all right, if I do a git reset, let me do a git status first to see. Okay, everything's clean. I can do a git reset. Back to 1810, right? Now if I try to do something here, now I'm kind of in dangerous land, because now no matter what I do, I'm never going to refer to this again. Like whatever commit I make is not going to be 67. Like I've lost the connection between what Origin's main is and what my main is going to be. So then if I try to push, like let's try this. Let's some file, right? Make some file. Git edit. Git commit. Okay, now, oops. Yeah, now I've diverged, right? Now I am, now I'm kind of in trouble. I can't really push it because, so now I've lost this connection here with what origin main is. Right, so yeah, you have to be careful when you do a git reset that you don't reset to some place that's, you know, before what you've already pushed, in other words. Because, you know, I've kind of already told people about this and now I'm changing my mind, and that's not a good thing. That will get you in trouble with your team. So that's one caveat to, you know, to get resetting is make sure you only go, you know, if you've pushed up to here, don't go changing history back before where you've already pushed to, because then you're going to have to, you know, do some out of band communication with your team to tell them to, you know, pull down a new version of what they think origin main should be, for instance. Question, Dan.
Yeah, so is that the only solution to that problem? Is you're basically telling the team to kind of bring their local head back to that initial commit, and then everyone kind of redoes the work and pushes forward from there, or is there another solution?
Yeah, I mean, telling your team to do that is a last resort, in my opinion. Like, you'd want to do anything you could and not tell your team that. And, you know, one option would be that you do the work of merging and figuring out how to fix your troubles without having your team pay for it. So, you know, if you were to be in this situation here and you had gotten, you know, back here and diverged, what you could do is just put this on another branch, right? You could go, I can make a branch. So my head is here. I can do a git branch, you know, something. Okay. Now I've got a couple branches sitting right there. I've got main, I've got something. So then I can put main back where it should be, which is back here. Using git reset. So I would do like, yeah, -- hard would work. So now main is here. I still got my changes out here, but now I need to go back and, you know, do a git merge and, you know, and pull my changes in from here. So it's all nice and legal, right? So I can do a git pull. Actually, no, I'm still on main. So let me get on that branch. So I'm going to get on the branch something, then do the git pull. Or actually, no, first I'd have to do a git merge. Yeah, so git merge. Main. There we go. So now I've done a merge out onto this branch, right? And now I can go back to main and, bring it onto main and then push it. So, whoops, main, trying to get you guys to lunch, but I want to go make sure this is covered. So bring something. So that's I've already done a merge on, from main onto something. So this is just a fast forward going the other way. So now I can now I can bring origin main up to date, right? Because now we've got a common ancestry. We can just do a git push. And there we are. So now I don't have to tell the team anything, except that here I've pushed up my change.
Those were some Jedi Git moves.
Well, so it seems like it, but I totally understand that would look like that. But the basic thing is that I brought branching in. I'm sorry that I haven't covered that, officially here yet. But the basic idea is that you can use git reset to make it look like you want locally, but don't go back so far to change history. Don't change the history of something you've already pushed. Like is kind of the, if you want to write it down and put it on a sticky note, only go back as far as something that you've already pushed. Otherwise, if you find that you have to do a push dash force, that's a huge red flag that you really need to, talk to the team, read some more documentation or something before you go ahead and do that. So, yeah, I feel like I've got off in the weeds a little bit with that. We'll try to cut down the weeds after lunch and do some reps on the repo. And the two things I want to cover after lunch are merge collisions, and then a little bit of kind of the kind of workflow type stuff that you can bring into play. I mentioned git rebase and git cherry pick, so I want to talk about those a little bit. So, we okay to put a pin in it for now and then come back? What is it, 11:30? So maybe like 12:30. Is that going to work for people?
Chat saying yes, so I feel like that's gonna work.
Okay, sounds good. I'll see everybody at 12:30.
Cool. Thank you, Chris.